Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Paul Mars Black. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I know you've been out doing the rounds of some of the podcasts because you have a great album out, actually coming out. Is it a couple days, right?
Yeah,
Today's
May 13th.
up very
So
soon.
yeah, it kind of came out as a preview on Record Store Day,
Yep.
just like last week or something, and they did really well with the vinyl. I don't know how much they sold, but there was some limited edition colors, or like red vinyl
Oh, cool.
here on it. But yeah, that went well. It's starting to trickle out, and it's starting to get a good reaction. Get some good reviews, or I'm really happy with. I just feel that this is the best album I've ever done. It's
You would hope that of most artists, you always want to be doing your best because,
yeah,
to come on and be like, yeah, I just spent this last year of doing the worst thing I've ever done before. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But it is, it feels like it's probably more true to all your styles that you've done of music. I mean, to me, it feels like a singer songwriter rock album, I guess, because it's very song oriented, but
yeah. It's a good,
rock and roll is the undercurrent in it.
yeah.
So that is awesome. How did you end up with this version of the group? Because you and Joe have been together for a while, right?
Yeah, Joe and I met right after my band Black Cherry broke up. Black Cherry kind of broke up. It was a Black Cherry I just felt was a really good band. It wasn't quite what I wanted to do with Black Cherry, but the songs were really good, and it was close. And then when Black Cherry broke up, uh, I hooked up with Joe, and Joe and I were just kind of hermits writing together. We just hit it off as songwriting partners, and we just figured out it was like therapy for us to get together and write songs. It was a struggle trying to get them recorded because of lack of money and being poor, um, and just and depression because our bands broke up. We were like, we broke up with our girlfriends. We were trying to make ends meet, doing just ridiculous jobs. He was working at a t-shirt place, printing up t-shirts, and I was doing probably telemarketing or something, just trying to make ends meet, and but we kind of, music was therapy for us. We'd get together and write about, whatever we were feeling, and we're real passionate about what we were doing. So everything we did had to have meaning. It wasn't just writing a song for the sake of writing a song. It was an outlet for us, and we just came up with a lot of good songs. And over time, we would have different lineups together, and we just did recordings in our rehearsal studio, and just to kind of document things. And uh, different things would pull us away from each other. Periodically, we had family that we were raising. We started having kids, getting married. Different things would happen over the years, or he'd reunite with his band, go out on tour, and then I'd reunite with my band, go out on tour, and holding a lineup together, a solid lineup, was really difficult because of the caliber of musicians that we wanted to use. They were really, we used really, people that breed of musician that would do the style that we liked, which was like eclectic blues, Americana, Rolling Stones style. They were rare, and they were also used to they'd all had record deals before, so they were like, any opportunity where they could make money, they were pulled away. So we went through a series of different lineups. But then I think around 2000, by the year 2000, we just had a bunch of demos recorded, and we thought, yeah, well, let's put it out and see how it goes. And we put that out, and we only printed 1,000, but it got great reviews, just reviews that made me want to cry, and but we didn't have the means to really kind of keep printing it up or marketing it or anything else. We had no label behind us. It was just a really good record of demos that we put out. The songs were really good, and
Right.
in retrospect, looking back at it, I kind of think we put a little bit too much on there. There was a few songs that were just kind of improv. There was an a cappella improv that I went in just doing hand claps, and just did it to a mic. And then Joe went in after the fact and put guitar on it. And he had to tune to my voice because we didn't know what key we were in. So it kind of, but it was a real interesting track. So, we threw it on there, but then I just think, we could have edited it down a little bit more, but what I like about this new album is that it's also started out being demos, but then when we listened back, we realized we had the makings of a really good record that had a concept, because everything kind of, even though there was a lot of variety to the styles and everything, it all had a continuity that made sense, right? But we were lacking a few more songs, so we went in and recorded 4 more songs in Fox 4 Studio in Hollywood with Gabe Lowry producing, and then we had more than enough. So we decided we're going to cut it down to 12 of the best, and we took a few out that were really good songs, but we just thought these are the ones that made sense for a real good album, start to finish, like a story, and we put it out, and I'm really happy with the way it came out, and we have a few songs left over that are really good as well that can be on the next record. So we got a head start on our next one.
That's really cool. I mean, it's funny because it probably sounds more like the Rolling Stones. Even the Rolling Stones don't sound like the Rolling Stones anymore. At times, you know what I mean? That quintessential 1970s sound is just rock and roll. I actually feel like I hear a lot of the Faces in you guys with your voice and the guitars.
Yeah, well, both Joe and I love the Faces, but Joe, I have to say that the Faces are, those were Joe's heroes. And Joe loved the Faces growing up. That's his biggest influence. And I'd have to say my biggest influence is probably the Rolling Stones, the Beatles.
Yeah.
So they all kind of go together.
No, they totally do. So that's, it's interesting. I haven't heard many bands, new albums out that reflect that, especially like that, because it's very eclectic. The songs aren't, it's in the style of Stones, but it doesn't sound like the Stones by any means,
Yeah. And I think, what we did try to do and by the way, I'm moving because I see my computer's going to die if I don't plug it in. So I'm going to go find a charger while I'm talking.
Okay.
But we did, we wanted to do what the Rolling Stones did, and what the Beatles did, and what all the bands did back then. They didn't just go for one sound, like, okay, we're a rock and roll band and this and that. They would incorporate whatever they could find, like old blues, or the Beatles especially, they would put a French song or Spanish song in there, so they were influenced by all kinds of music, I think, even classical to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we wanted to do, is we wanted it to be a rock and roll record, but we also wanted to incorporate other stuff that we listened to growing up, because we just, like, we didn't want to just be like, well, we definitely didn't want to be a metal band at all. But we didn't want to be just straight rock and roll too, or punk or anything like that. We wanted punk influence, but we didn't want to be a punk band. We didn't want to be a rock and roll band. We wanted to be just kind of everything, everything that we listened to growing up, we wanted to incorporate.
I hear that. I mean, that's why when I say rock and roll, I think to me, rock and roll is all encompassing. Like, it's not a metal or this, that. It's not dated to a certain time period that you would think of when you hear it.
Yeah.
This is kind of album that will age well because it sounds like,
Yeah, I definitely do. I would consider this definitely a rock and roll record.
Right.
Just like any Rolling Stones record.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, it's just rock and roll. The Beatles is rock and roll. You know what I mean? It's not like it comes from, like, say, I don't know. Obviously you're LA Guns. That'd be maybe a hard rock band. I don't think, maybe because of the guitar. I think more metal to them. But this is rock and roll.
I'd say, and what you said about being timeless, that's exactly what I've always wanted to do with my music and the songs I write. Is I never wanted to write anything that would just stick me in a genre that would be dated later on. I wanted to write the songs that are, the caliber of song I want to write is something that's gonna be popular 50 years from now, or 100 years now, long after I'm dead, that it's gonna last. And like "O Solo Mio" or something, like a classic song that was written, hundreds of years ago, that still lasts today,
That's crazy. So you actually said, wait, you said 2000 you guys started. So you guys have been working on stuff for like 22 years?
I'd say I think Joe and I met around 1990.
Wow.
So yeah, and we have so many songs that people have never heard. We've been writing for years. It's just the speed at which we get them recorded and out is
Rush.
pretty slow. But I think we're gonna pick up the pace now because it I think we just got to a point in our lives where we've had a lot of distractions, but we have a little bit more going on for us right now where we're not dependent on any label. We're kind of self-sufficient in other ways other than music. Um, so and we have a good team of people behind us, like engineers and Mark Habegger has been doing our videos for us, and Gabe Lowry's been doing our recording for us, and they really believe in the music. So they're almost like part of the band. And then we got a network of incredible musicians that'll back us up for anything we want to do. We got, and we have our pick of whoever's, um, drummers. I mean, I've played drums and I did a lot of the drumming on this record. So we always have a built-in drummer. Joe does all the guitars and I do the singing. Sometimes we even play bass, but we have some great bass players. We have great keyboard players. I got backup singers I can pull in and all kinds of other musicians. So I think this is kind of the start of, we're going to kind of continue recording, and I'm also working on a solo record as well.
Right, good. Well, I mean, now that you're in control of stuff, you can actually do stuff like, release some of these other stuff, digital downloads for the fans, do a Patreon page or something on a website for the fans, where you're not, I don't think you're ever going to catch up to releases of all your music. You might have to release some other stuff like it's digital, like older classics and kind of package them or something.
Yeah, I think actually, because the first record that we did has some really, really great stuff, and it's never been marketed or put out. So we can even like follow up this new record we're finally doing. I think when we first put out that first record, Joe was dead set. He was dead set against Spotify or streaming or anything, just because they don't pay money, and he was really resentful. But I think we've kind of over the years realized that it's not even about the money. It's about like let's give the songs out to people. Keep the songs alive, keep the music alive. We're we got to face it. We're not in the days of selling records anymore. It's all about it's so we're not really dependent on our money coming from music right now. It's just a matter of like, okay, we wrote all these great songs and we love what we do and we're passionate about what we do. Let's get them out there to people any means we can. So he's finally been convinced that it's the days of streaming, so we're gonna let it go on Spotify, but we're putting them out single by single, and by I think May 13th the whole record will be out, and then we've got more stuff to back it up. Like I said, we got this first record that was never offered for streaming platforms.
Yeah, because
so,
I was curious. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to go listen to it. I mean, crazy.
It's called Sundown Yellow Moon, and so we can follow it up with that, and we're in the midst of like recording some more stuff with Gabe Lowry, and we got and then we got our video guy that we love and really believes in the music, so he's doing a lot of stuff for us.
You have a team now. It's gonna be interesting though. Do you think you finally being in control of it and it sounds like you're in the right spot finally to be in control and do it so it's fun? With COVID, it's been a challenge for people.
Yeah.
But going back out and playing now, do you think it's going to be how different it's going to be? Because everyone's going to be wanting to play now. Before the market was saturated, so it's a little different.
Well, we're not worried about if there's. You mean about playing live?
No, just getting the music out there, competing, because everyone's been locked down, right? In music.
Yeah.
Some people that haven't done albums in years just finished their first album that they haven't done like ever.
Yeah, that's true. But it's out there for people that want to hear it, and I think even if it doesn't become like a big hit, it's at least we have it out there and we're doing we're making it available, and I think probably one of the things I like about, you know, the fact that we didn't really ever sign a deal or anything is that we are in complete control of the artistic side of it and how it's
Yeah.
done, what we put on the record. We have every choice to make. We decide what songs go on there. We decide how they're recorded, what they sound like. We arrange them. You know, we don't have anybody telling us, okay, you got to be this sound. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, it's complete freedom artistically. So it's a real, true, unadulterated, you know, rock and roll record that's like done the way we want it. And what our kind of goal is, first of all, we want to write songs that are timeless. If somebody discovers this record 100 years from now, it'll still hold up.
Exactly.
And the other thing is we want to, the music field has gotten really saturated, but it's saturated with a lot of stuff that's the same, you know.
Right.
So what we want to do is kind of show people, you know, what it was done like back, you know, in the 60s and the 70s when, you know, there was more thought put into, you know, making music, I think.
Yeah, back to like with vinyl and everything else, the packaging, everything was a whole thing. Well, we didn't ask you this because a lot of bands, you know, it's saturated. It's really a good time for them. I mean, I don't think you have. There's no such thing as competition for your type of music because, and I get a lot of music sent to me. I haven't heard anything that sounds like you guys at all. You know,
that's good.
It's really good. I mean, you guys sound good, and you're not. I can't be like, oh, it does feel like I can hear because you said the Stones and the Faces influences. I can hear because I am also a fan of those bands. So you know, I pick it up. That it feels that school of songwriting, you know, of influence, but it doesn't sound like any of their songs. I can't go, oh, that sounds like, you know, Brown Sugar or something. It doesn't sound like anything.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky thing to do to be able to show your influences but not sound like them in a way.
Yeah, no, we're not trying to be a carbon copy of anybody. You know, it's really like, you know, like I had drummers when I started out as a drummer, you know, and I had a lot of drummers that I was probably influenced by that, and I know I don't sound like any of them, you know. Like I love Charlie Watts and I love Ringo, right? But I have my own style because I also studied jazz. I love Buddy Rich. I saw him like four times or something when I was a teenager and stuff, and even met him. And I would get right up close and I'd watch what he was doing and stuff. But I'd probably pick up a thing or two from him, but I couldn't do what he did. You know, he's an amazing drummer. And then Billy Cobham, just a really big powerhouse drummer, you know, and I could appreciate what he did, and I would look at it, and I would try to get those rudimentary. But he was a little too stiff, you know, for my style. You know, so I would kind of like take a little bit from each drummer that I liked, you know, maybe, you know, John Bonham or something, you know, just little bits and pieces of them all. And all that together became my style, which wasn't like any of them, really.
Right.
There was influences, and it's the same with our music in general. You know, we listen to everything, you know, and, you know, we have our main influences, our main bands that we love, and we're kind of like in that vein, but not like any of them, you know?
Yeah. Well, I can say, I mean, you can be influenced by an artist and not sound like them. Because I always say, you know, we already have a John Bonham. We already have a Jimmy Page. We already have a, just for easy naming, you don't need another one. We already have one. You don't need to sound like Jimmy Page. You already have Jimmy Page. You don't need another John Bonham. You need you. You need somebody individual, you know?
Yeah.
Just really no need to. With this, so are you going to try doing a lot of videos with this album, or are you just going to do a few? Or
well, we did 3, and we got the third one is coming out probably in a few days. I think it might I think the third one might come out coinciding with the record release, on the 13th. That's kind of the plan. I think we're kind of talking about it right now. I just talked to the Mark Haberger. He's the guy that's doing the video, the director. I said, you know, I think maybe we need to get a few more in the can, you know, because the videos are, you know, getting some good reaction.
Yeah.
And it's just good to have a visual to connect with the music. And one of the things I like to do with videos is I don't ever like it to tell the story of the song, because I just think, you know, growing up, I never had videos. I listened to the song, and the songs would always spark imagination in my own hand. You know, songs that
like like a book, and then being a movie, you're like, that's not what I was thinking it was.
and then,
You know?
but then, yeah. But if you do a video, you have to be careful, because if you do a video that has the storyline of the song, you could ruin that song for somebody. You know,
Right.
I know that, like, I've listened to songs that I think it means something to me. It hits
Mhm.
me a certain way, but it could hit you in a completely different way. You know, I don't know. And that's what I didn't like about a lot of those old MTV videos, that they would have actors acting out the song, and it just sometimes that would just ruin the song for me, you know. So I like the videos I like were like, you know, like stuff the Rolling Stones would do would be just them performing. It's the band,
Yep.
you know. It's just a performance. They're not acting anything out. Like one of my favorite videos ever is when they did It's Only Rock and Roll. And they just did a silly thing where they dressed up in sailor suits, and they were in a tent, and they filled it up with bubbles, and it was just it meant nothing to the song, but it basically, except, you know, that it's
Fun.
it's rock and roll, you know.
Right. No,
Um
I've always liked the original music too, or the original just performance videos. But yeah, it is interesting you doing the releases. I ask that because everyone has a different plan. There's still right or wrong now for releases for types of music. All the
yeah,
artists are taking control of their own destinies. Where you can have a niche audience of say 100 fans, but if they're the 100 fans is buying your merch, streaming your stuff, and supporting you,
yeah,
that number could bring you more money than you could if you had 1,000 casual fans that just weren't really intimately buying your stuff. You know, like I
yeah.
think artists are learning that the more of it, you can have a focused base that can actually support you enough where you can keep making more albums, or you can tour, you can, afford lunch when you go on tour. Like, I mean, it can help you. You don't need to have 1,000 things anymore, like 1,000.
Yeah, we do have a pretty solid base. It's mostly in Europe. That's why we decided to release it in Europe first. The physical product, and they're buying it over there. It's Dogs and More, Joe's old band, has a pretty solid fan base in UK and Europe, and LA Guns. When I was in LA Guns, I would do better when I was touring over there than here. Like, no, over in America, they didn't seem to care much at all.
America's
My
not very loyal when it comes to rock and roll.
most of my best gigs were over a year, or Argentina. They loved us in Argentina. And I went there by myself in Argentina, just as Paul Mars Black, and I had a sold out show, and they and this is the weird thing about Argentina. They knew Sonic Boom already. They from our first album in 2000,
Okay.
we only printed up 1,000, but uh, there was a South American promoter that asked us for permission to put it out down there, and said that they would give us half of whatever they produced. They sent us 500 copies of that they produced,
Yeah.
or they printed up, right? So we thought, oh, they probably only printed 1,000 down there as well. But when I went down to Argentina to play, I went to they took me on a press tour, and I realized that all the major radio stations had that record, and they'd been playing it, and they said they knew the record. And then when I went to do my show, it was a sold out show, and I had a great Argentina band backing me up while I was there, and they put this show on, and it was a sold out show, and they were singing the songs for Sonic Boom, and I'm like, I'm bigger down there than I am up here. Nobody knows me up here,
Be
or
fun
nobody.
actually. So how are you gonna balance it out? Are you gonna do some songs from each of your older bands?
Um,
Like in the sets, if you guys start playing together like this out at some points, because you have a mixed fan base. Are you gonna be just doing, we're not gonna do any of our old bands, we're just gonna do, because you have enough material, but you get the Strangler of the Dogs More, or Strangler LA Guns fan, and you have some really good songs with them too. And your versions of the songs are very good, even better at times.
um, we had thought about it. We thought, I mean, yeah, actually, we thought about throwing in, just to make, because, more than just being songwriters, and we're, entertainers as well. So we want to give audiences what they're showing up for. So we thought about, like, if we tour, and we're only going to tour if it makes sense. I mean, right now we're still kind of like in the COVID thing, and we want to see how the record does, and if there's a demand for it, we'll probably get out and play some shows. But probably, yeah, Joe and I had talked about, like, throwing in some Dogs More fan songs, some more popular ones. and the ones that he wrote with them. And yeah, maybe doing our probably a completely different version of some of my songs that I wrote with LA Guns. You know, like I'll obviously record them or play them the way I would play my, you know, they're my songs. So
I
never,
agree with you. Well, that's the way you should actually, because it's only been through the internet that people have learned the history of you. Because when it first came out, when I first LA Guns came out, there was no internet. All I had was that picture on the album cover.
yeah,
You didn't know that you wrote all this. You were writing all the songs. You couldn't tell that Steve Riley wasn't a drummer. Like, you just had a picture. And at the time, when you're a teenager, everything's at face value.
yeah,
Time's gone on, you realize that you've written, with your hands at all the good songs. You know,
mm,
these people weren't drummers. This is you learn things are different. So there's really no reason why or Joe shouldn't do your songs that you wrote from other bands. I mean, if
yeah.
you want to.
I think I made a mistake. I mean, once they released my music, I was playing a lot of those songs in my new band, Black Cherry, and I thought those are the songs that are going to get me signed because they got them signed.
Right.
But then I thought, oh, I don't want to be playing the same songs they're doing, and was in a lawsuit over those songs, which tied up Black Cherry for a long time. But in retrospect, I probably should have just recorded my versions with Black Cherry and released it.
Yeah, you sound too much like LA Guns. You're like, oh.
Well, we wanted to be different,
Oh, I know.
and then I thought if I do the same songs, it's kind of like going to be kind of weird at the time. But now, in retrospect, I probably should have done them just so that people knew my version, so that they knew how I would wanted to portray the song myself. In my opinion, they did a horrible job recording my songs. It's not at all how I would have done it. Even in the band, while I was performing the songs myself, I had a struggle getting them to be the way I wanted them. I didn't have those kind of musicians to do what I wanted to do. I kind of felt they were limited, and really focused on being the cliche high five heavy metal, which is something I didn't want anything to do with, really. I wanted more, I wanted more blues thrown in there. I wanted some punk thrown in there. I wanted, basically kind of what I'm doing with Joe, thrown into the mix. And it just wasn't, I didn't have those kind of musicians behind me. It was what it was. So for me, it was kind of a blessing when I left LA Guns. It was good, but then I got tied in and connected so strongly with LA Guns because they used my songs for the record. And it's hard to overcome. So it's hard to overcome that connection, although I'm hoping this album kind of sets me apart as an artist, that this is what I do. And it's not that, even though those are my songs, that's not how I would have done them, and probably someday I may actually go and re-record those songs just so they're documented in the way that I would have produced them and produce them myself. Now that I got the means to do it, and I got studios, I got engineers.
It'd be awesome. That'd be really, really fun.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
And it might be interesting for fans, I think, of that music to see how they would have been done by the original writer, and they would be quite different,
Do a whole show like that. Just a one-off special night of all your versions.
Yeah.
Make it a live CD or whatever. You get them all recorded and you're done. So you're not stuck. Yeah, what was a challenge though? Because you play guitar, you sing, and you play drums and bass, right? So you kind of do everything.
I play piano. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that always been? Did you said you started as a drummer, but did you naturally play piano when you're younger? Or?
Yeah. Well, actually, before I was able to play drums, I played piano lessons when I was real young, and I just got bored with the piano. Like, the teacher was so focused on me curving my fingers just right, and the technique behind playing before actually teaching me a chord or something that was interesting. There was nothing to keep my interest in the piano. I was learning to read, and I was learning the notes and stuff and scales and curving your thumb underneath. And it's like, I just wanted to play. I couldn't go be bothered with all this style, and I was really drawn towards drums because of Ringo Starr. And I really wanted to be a drummer since I was a little kid, since I was like 4. And my parents just didn't support it. They thought, well, it's just, we get you a drum set, it's gonna make a lot of noise, it's gonna be expensive, you're gonna give it up, you're not gonna stick with it. And then weirdly, when I wanted to pick like an instrument for band, when I got to like third grade or something, my brother was a really, really good trumpet player, just amazing trumpet player. And he got a new trumpet. So they had a hand-me-down trumpet. And they said, well, why don't you start with this? And I didn't want to, and there was several reasons. First of all, they had a trumpet. They didn't have to spend any money and I could be playing music. And I had kind of buck teeth at the time when I was a kid. So they thought if I played trumpet, it would push my teeth back in and they wouldn't have to get braces.
Are you serious? That doesn't sound very scientific.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. But so now I tried playing trumpet, and my brother Mark taught me a lot about music, by the way, because he's a great musician. He taught me about reading rhythms and all that kind of stuff, but he was trying to teach me the trumpet too. And I didn't like the trumpet because it's something about the buzzing of the lips and stuff would make my face tickle, and it just I didn't bond with the trumpet. And finally, I think finally I think when I was about 12, I bought I got my dad, or I bought him maybe a pair of really thick marching drum sticks, right? And then my dad and then I joined the band. And all I ever was taught was how to hold the stick and then drop it. And that's all the band teacher ever taught me. And then my dad, when he saw I was interested in drumming, he got me a snare drum, a really nice one, a Ludwig. And it had in the case, it was in a case, and it had the 13 essential rudiments on one side, and then you flip it over, and then it had the 13 extra rudiments. So there's 26 rudiments. Now there's a million other rudiments, but
right.
Those are the essential rudiments that you had to learn for drumming. And Mark, my older brother, taught me how to read the rhythms, and I taught myself all the rudiments. And then as I got more and more at practice and started getting better at I saved up $100 from a paper route I was in, and I probably when I was about 12 or 13 too, I bought my first drum set, and I learned like one or two drum beats. I think one of the first drum beat I learned was like the Ringo Starr beat, and then I learned Honky Tonk Woman, the Charlie Watts beat. And there were some hillbilly kids that kind of were getting bussed down in my school, and they came up to me and they go, "We hear you play the drums," and I said, "Yep." And they just go, "Well, we need a drummer," and they live way up in the sticks. So my parents would drive me and my drum set up way up in the country, this old beat up house across from a pig farm, and drop me off for the weekend. And I would sit there and jam with all these hillbilly kids, playing country and bluegrass and rock and roll and Chuck Berry music and everything. And it was great. We'd jam all day long, and then we'd take breaks. We'd go off into the country, to the swimming hole and everything. And that's how I learned how to play music, was just being dropped off in the country with a drumstick and playing with a bunch of like bluegrass country hillbillies, and it was just a great way to get started in music. And then once I showed that I was serious about drumming, my parents started supporting me more, and my dad would take me down to the Dixieland festival that they would have in Sacramento. They would when I was real young as a kid, he would take me down to the Dixieland festival and let me sit in with all the old Dixieland jazz cats, and I'm get into the swing and everything like that. And my teenage years, I was in some really good rock bands and stuff. And then I wanted to branch off from rock and roll. So I started somehow I got connected with the jazz scene in Sacramento. And when I was about 17, and a lot of the older jazz cats realized I could just sit in and play, without rehearsal. And I would get called into gigs all the time as a teenager. And I really kind of cut my teeth with getting that swing down. And then I joined a jazz Latin band because I wanted to get more syncopated and stuff. And just little by little, by just joining all these bands and just doing it hands-on, I learned how to play, and I became really rhythmic oriented. And then I went off to college and became a percussion major at San Jose State. And then from there, I migrated to LA and started playing in bands. But I always sang from behind the drums, because I felt, there was one band that I was in that I was always called in for in Sacramento. And this was what really inspired me. in my last years of high school, I joined the choir and I made honor choir. So I was taught how to sing, and I always thought that was just one more limb that I can add to my drumming to make me more valuable as a drummer. Not that I ever wanted to be a lead singer, but I just wanted to be able to do it, But I practiced and I got good. And then when I went to San Jose State, I was a percussion major, but I was a jazz vocal minor, So I studied both. And so I knew how to sing, and then eventually kind of in the mid 80s, as a songwriters, I wrote more and more songs. I wanted to be able to get my songs out there, and it was really difficult to do from a drumming standpoint. So somehow or another, that's when I ended up getting pushed out and becoming a lead singer.
What about guitar? When did guitar sneak in there? Because you play guitar too.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of known guitar. Probably my earliest guitar experiences were learning chords and making up songs when I was there's always a guitar sitting around our house, or a piano. So I was always noodling around on piano and guitar. It just wasn't what my focus was on, but I always knew chords, and I was able to bang out a few chords and make up melodies to them. And that's why I was always writing songs, and then I think a lot of my early songs in Hollywood, I bought a Beatle bass. So I was making up bass lines on this Beatle bass, and it had a little sound to it because it was kind of semi hollow body, and I would just come up with these bass melodies, and then I would sing over it, and then I had this briefcase that I would write lyrics, and I was constantly writing lyrics, and I would keep it locked because it was very protective. I didn't want anybody to ever hear my songs, really. And then I would have girlfriends would break into my briefcase and read my lyrics, and say, "Well, what's this about?" And being so I was very protective. And then finally I thought, I should really try to get some of these. I did sing some of my songs for people, and they were saying, "You need to get that stuff out." And so I started getting a little bit more bolder and letting my songs out. And little by little, as my songs were getting accepted, I thought, "Oh, okay, that's probably what I do then." These days I kind of consider myself a songwriter more than anything else. I'm a singer, a drummer. I mean, I can play, I play guitar, but I think with working with Joe, he knew that I knew I never tried to be a great guitar player with where leads and riffs and all that kind of stuff. But Joe knew that I knew my way around a guitar. So he kept saying, "Okay, rather than just being a front man that jumps around like Mick Jagger," Joe wanted me to cover the rhythm on guitar as well. So it filled out the music more. He was more concerned with filling out the music than being a front man. So now, and then when I went back to college, I ended up getting my degree. When I finally finished my degree, wasn't a percussion major. I ended up getting my degree in film composition. So I was a composer. So I learned how to, score films, with, string sounds and everything, and orchestrate and even write out scores. But I had to make a living after I got out of college. So I went back to performing, and I realized it was easier for me to take gigs and play if it was just me and a guitar. I didn't have to ask 5 different band members and try to pull in a whole band together to go play. I could take these little gigs, ask for less money. There's always somebody at winery or casino or something that wants a musician that they pay a little bit to sit in a corner and play music, So I started doing that, and as I had to be and I would put a tambourine on my foot to keep the beat. As I learned, and people would call out requests and stuff, I kept learning more and more songs. I started learning cover songs that I mixed my original songs in with those. So I started learning Creedence, Rolling Stones, whatever, John Denver, whoever was called out to me, Johnny Cash. And as I started learning all these songs, and Simon and Garfunkel, whatever people wanted to hear, I learned what was popular and what made a good song popular. And I started getting really good on guitar. So I think I can consider myself a really good guitar player now. But I'm not a lead guitar player. I'm strictly rhythm. But I play. So when I play guitar, I play it like a drummer, and I do a lot of noodling and stuff. But it's really in just a rhythmic way to accompany the voice, and people seem to really like it. So I just did a wedding yesterday. Yeah.
Just acoustically. Just you acoustically singing.
Yeah,
Just a
just
solo?
it was an acoustic gig. I played. I've kind of been turning down the gigs a lot lately because I've been doing a lot of real estate, and that's
Yeah.
making me a little bit more money than playing music. But this week I played Thursday, Friday, Saturday at a winery, and then when I played Saturday, there was a reception group in front of me, and they said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And they hired me to play their reception the next day. So I played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I mean, I was working before COVID. I was working full time as a musician. I played like almost every day. You know, I had gigs all around California. But when all the gigs got shut down with COVID, that's when I started doing realty. And then now I'm pretty much a real estate agent. You know, but what's good about being a real estate agent is I make enough money to take and put back into my music and do my recordings that I want to do.
Yeah.
And produce my own records, and I don't have to depend on a label or anything to give me an advance and be in debt for it. I just put the music out as I want to do it.
Well, I wouldn't want to be in contracts if I was you ever again either. I think you've had enough of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No more contracts for you. I think the other bands have ruined it for you that way. Well,
Oh yeah. I'm very disillusioned with the music industry in general. But I'm still a musician. I'm still passionate about what I do. So I still want to do it, you know. So all that matters to me is that I'm able to play and put my music out.
what I did think was weird, I had learned also from a podcast, it was weird how what had happened to you with LA Guns and kind of getting cheated out of your what you wrote. But then at one time I'd seen you actually online had actually played with Tracy, and then the backup story is you kind of try to come full circle. So it feels like you're always putting an effort in on trying to keep things on the up and up with everybody, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. I mean, I got asked to rejoin LA Guns and put the original band together, and I knew it was not the greatest idea to team up with people that had stabbed me in the back the way they did. And I knew it was probably going to end badly again, but I still, it was, well, there's a couple things I can say about it. It allowed me to leave a job that was a go nowhere job that I couldn't stand. And I was actually able to be a working musician during that time, even though I was doing my own songs, but I wasn't able to do them completely the way I would have liked to have done them, because by this point it was so embedded in people's heads the way they were recorded originally. So it's still, nonetheless, it did get me out there and made me some connections and got me some publicity, and I was able to work as a musician instead of like doing a job that I hated, you know. And it ended like it should have, but when it ended, I just took a different route, you know. I went back to school and finally got my degree in music, which is what I always told myself I was going to do. And I just buckled down, and I was like obsessed with school. And I think over the years when I was going to school and getting my music degree, I think I became such a better musician. I had such a better understanding of it, and I think it opened up avenues for me as far as songwriting and composing in general, and coming up with the sounds I wanted. You know, I just knew more about. But it was weird. After going to school, I was able to go back over music that I've been writing for years and understand why what I was doing made sense. You know, like why this chord leads to this chord, and that, you know, and what and oh, that's why that's a diminished chord that I've been playing. I didn't even know what some of these chords were called that I was playing. You know. Or what made them diminished or half diminished or a seventh, you know. It's just like, and why, and dominant sevenths, and just the whole theory behind music and how it works, that's been analyzed from Western, you know, like from early classical days, you know, till now. It just, I think it just makes me think differently about music and how it all works and why it works, you know?
Really, you're just going by feel before, and then else you know why it sounded good.
Yeah, it was all, and here's the weird thing. I didn't, one of the things I had to do is I had to take a songwriting class. Not that I ever needed to, you know, I always knew how to write songs, right? But it was interesting to take that class because there was a whole book on songwriting that we had to go through, and then I realized they have names for everything I've been doing for years. They've analyzed it, and like just obviously verse, bridge,
Right.
tags, pre-chorus, those kind of things. But as far as lyrics and alliteration and all this stuff, there's a name for everything I've been doing for years, and I didn't know there was names for all this stuff. And it was always a weird concept. I was like, how do you teach somebody how to write a song? You don't teach somebody how to write a song. You just do it. And the song is already there. You don't really write it. You just find it. It's like, and it just kind of comes because I would wake up, like with something in my head, a melody or lyric or something like that, and I'd write it down. Document it any way I could. And I don't know where they came from. I didn't know how they came about. I just know that I liked it and it sounded good, and other people seemed to like it, But in learning how it's done, it's like that. I think people have gone back over songs and given them name, given the little pieces names and the things that get repeated. It's weird. After school, you throw it all out the door anyway, and you just do what you've always done. But you just in subconsciously you have a better idea of what it is.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I mean, to do it one way and to learn what it is, it's already allowed you to be an established songwriter and not make you having to be like, oh, I've got to do it this way. You might understand the concept of it and maybe see what you're doing is similar.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I would just go for recording, and I hear I know what I like and I know what I don't like. So you kind of know what you want. It's not gonna change you that much, but
yeah, I know. I do see a lot of songwriters sitting there trying to go by the rules and do a method, but yeah, it doesn't work that way for me. I can't go by a method, and I do hear some songwriters talk about their approach to writing a song. I don't have an approach. It could come, a song for me could come from anywhere. It could come from it could start with a chord progression that I like, or it could start with a melody that I hear, or even just a title. If I have a good title, sometimes the song writes itself. So yeah, I just I'll approach it from any angle. I don't have one method, and I don't think there really should be a method to songwriting. You should just do what comes to you. It's more of an inspiration. And one of the things I like about writing with Joe too is like he'll take me places that I wouldn't have thought to go before, because he really understands the guitar, and the way he plays guitar is very passionate, and it's almost like another voice. So we play off each other. And a lot of times he'll come up with something that'll inspire something that I never would have thought of, like he'll play a chord progression, and that sticks a melody in my head, and I'll just sing like, whatever, like scat singing or something, just
right.
And then I'll find a title that I like to go with that, that seems to match the feel, and then I'll trade ideas. I'll say, well, what if we go here? And then Joe will, oh yeah, but from there we can go here, and we kind of go on a journey together, and we end up with this thing that's like neither one of us would have expected. And that's what's great about writing with Joe. It's like that. I write songs by myself, but sometimes it's if you're with the right person, co-writing is really inspirational, and it's so great because you just come up with things that you just would never have thought.
I would imagine that it's a certain safety. Like if you were, like you said, the LA Guns are changing your songs. At a certain point, if you keep bringing them to them, you're like, yeah, they're gonna like it, but I know how much you're gonna put into it beyond what you think they're gonna want after a while, subconsciously. You're gonna take your song and change it anyhow. Whereas in relationship with Joe, he's not gonna change it. You can be who you are and work from there without, holding anything back.
Yeah, and the other thing is I can trust Joe to be honest with me as well, because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if I'm on to something good or not. I don't think that everything I write is good. I know that some of it is just like not that great, and so you got to kind of pick out the good stuff from everything you write, And Joe will be very upfront with me. Nah, that one doesn't work. And I appreciate that. I don't want to be praised for everything I do. I want to zero in on what's good. And that's what I like about this record that we're it's called Everybody Rains on My Parade. I think I just think it's the best thing I've ever done. And part of the reason is because of my relationship with Joe, like that. It's like he'll tell me if something sucks, you know. I'll tell him if I don't like something, you know. It goes both ways. And together, and we've bounced it off other people too. Hey, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? Hey, what about this one as opposed to this one when we're making a choice, you know? And other people, you know. And I think just overall, we've taken our time, and I think we've honed in on this record just being a great record. You know, I don't think there's anything about this record. I'm really proud of it. I don't think there's anything about this record that's bad. I think I'm happy with every little part of this record.
You should be. And say, on that note, we will end this. But going forward, anything you want to tell people, like where to go? Anything, you know? Obviously, I'll post links for the where they get the album and stuff. But is there anything you want to tell people for dates or anything they can go to, or Instagram or your Facebook you want to hunt you down?
Yeah, you can go to, what is it? We have a Facebook page. Yeah, please come join our Facebook page. It's Joe Dog and Paul Black's Sonic Boom. You should be able to Google it.
I'll put all the links. I'll track them down. I'll put underneath this video.
Yeah, and please go and join us. There's also a Bandcamp page apparently, and I'm sorry, I don't know where to go to it. I don't even know where to go to find my own record. But I know there's a Bandcamp page that got put up. I know it's available in Europe. It's supposed to be available over here in America. I think you'll be able to get it on Amazon. But yeah, we're in the days of Google. Find me. we're there somewhere.
I'll put the links to everything I can find for everybody else to make it easy. So after this interview, they can click on it and buy your stuff or check you out.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And it's a good album, so people check it out. I've heard the whole thing, and it's fantastic. And
thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. And thanks for the interview. I really appreciate your support, and it's been fun. I love talking about this stuff. You know.